Right, this is going to have to be a quick video. I might actually reach 10 minutes, but I'm going to talk really quick. Or try to and get muddled up. But anyway, this is a basic scene, and this is testing a new camera tool that I'm coming up with. I gave myself a task to do something in the new Maya 2011 QT toolkit interface. So, you know, the new interface that is quite nice. And also a Python task as well. So I wanted to do a Python and Qt UI that saves me time. And the one thing that I came up with was the mental ray physical render nodes, or things that relate to, you know, physical real life attributes. So for instance, you know, things like the film cameras, the digital film cameras, like the Arri cams and the cameras that Red do. And I've got a you know, a Canon 5D Mark II that I like to shoot with, and it gives me a lot of control over exposure and depth of field, depending on what lenses I put on it and that kind of thing. And it's really easy, and everything's in one place to use. Now, I wanted the same to be true of Maya, but unfortunately it isn't, and it's spread throughout many different nodes, and you have to do many different walkarounds and things. So I decided to do a toolkit to fix that. So basically what I've got is my base scene here, which is just rendered through Mental Ray, and it looks, you know, it looks quite cool if I get closer on it. But it doesn't, there's not a lot of camera control that I can have, and I'd be skipping from nodes and things. So what I'm going to do is create a PT camera, or physical tools camera, which has created this for me. So I'm going to put the target, and I don't know quite why I did that. I'm going to put the target over here like so, and we'll shift this back and have it looking down. Now I've got two lights in here, and they're mental ray physical lights, and the shaders are you know, just base mental ray shaders that aren't too you know, too brilliant. But what I've got here is, I'm a bit zoomed in, but if I look through this camera, I've got focal shade, which is a very interesting thing. Now I'm going to turn focal shade on and place it. So I'm going to place it probably about here. So I've got these controls exactly like you'd find on a camera, but what these allow me to do, if I turn focal shade off, is if I render this now, it should come out black, because first of all I need a multiplier. So we'll say, I don't know, a multiplier of 500. Will that give us something? Now I can just start to see things now. So a multiplier of 500 does give us things, but I'll whack it up to 1,000, so it's you know, it's 10 times the scale that it was originally, and I can really start to see things now. The shutter speed relates to light because it's shutter timing, and it also relates to motion blur. So I'll change that to 50, and it's stepped up twice. And then the f-stop, or the aperture. Now this is the f-stop aperture for light only. The iris opening, which controls soft focus or depth of field, is this here, and this is how we control it. But first of all, let me set a kind of a better kind of shot. So let me just go back, and we'll just look down, and I'll pull back a little bit. So I've got this kind of shot now. I've got my focal slider, of which I'll push into, we'll shoot at 85, and I'll render this, and this will be my starting point. Maybe I'll shift the camera up a little bit, just a tad. And then I'll render this. Right, so I've got my lovely little scene. Now I'm going to start playing with light and letting more light in. So I'm not actually changing lights anymore. I'm doing exactly as I would in camera. I'm just opening the iris up on the camera. And I've got, you know, a fair opening here. In fact, so much so that I would class it burning out a little bit. So I could drop that back down to, we'll say, f8. And I'll use the ISO to do finite adjustments, so I might want it a little bit brighter, so I'll step up to 400 ISO, and that's a little bit better. Now I've got something really nice here, which is the sensor controls. The sensor controls allow vignetting, so if I save that and just render it, it's starting to darken the outside areas. I've got highlights and crush blacks, and I can also adjust gamma and saturation. So, you know, as opposed to the image that we've got now, just me playing around with those sliders, I've got something that looks very different. I've got a more contrasty feel, and I've desaturated it slightly. I've dropped the gamma. Now I can control contrast quite easily by dropping the gamma and just upping the exposure. Sorry. Rookie error. So I'm getting a very contrasty feel just from playing about with the camera settings, and they're all in one place. In fact, the highlights are blown out there, so let's drop it down. But I'm getting a very sort of like light, a very kind of light, dark contrast area if I expose it properly again and push the highlights up. So you can see I'm getting a very harsh contrast. Maybe the lights aren't particularly set up properly at the moment, and I haven't enabled my lighting control. But, you know, I'm getting a very different feel just from altering the camera settings and how the camera's dealing with the colour that it's actually seeing. So I've just upped the blacks there as well. Now another interesting thing that I've got, if I take the gamma up and drop the exposure again, and I can save these presets and, you know, save them nicely in presets. But what I've got is soft focus. So if I enable soft focus and tighten my iris up a fair bit, we'll say at 0.3 centimeters squared, I'll get kind of a nice soft depthy feel to the scene. Now to control my focal point, it's actually quite easy. I can just turn focal shade on and shove this back, and this is the exact, I've got small step buttons here, and if you need more finite control, I can step this right down so that I can place it very much so right on the tip of the blue if I wanted. But for this example, I'll probably just focus it on the green, we'll say. So it should be focused on that green face. Well, in fact, it's not a case of it should, it will. And I've got kind of a nice, you know, a nice feel. I'm seeing some, you know, artifacts here, and let's push the saturation up so we can see it in a little bit more gamma. So the quality samples. I can up to something like, we'll say 16. My blade count we'll have at 12 because it's a nice lens that I'm using. And yeah, we'll just overexpose it a little bit. So I'll shoot at f4, and we'll see, you know, a much nicer looking image. I'm probably still focused a little bit too much there, and I'm probably too saturated because this is kind of burning out. So I might drop the ISO a little bit and close the iris just a tad and re-render that, and that should be, you know, that should be starting to look quite nice and touchable. And it's not a massive render hit either, not really. But it's but the reason why I like this is it's really easy just to turn focus shade on and then key kind of a focus pull all the way to, let's say, the front of the red block, and just say set key. So you can do very nice kind of photographic, you know, things that do work quite nicely. Just a quick rundown of this. A lot of these are disabled, but I shall put another video up when I've done these, and this one's really interesting because it deals with chromatic aberration. But there you go.